In this video, we are going to have a go at fitting the door card on this 1975 280 SL. We've never had a door card on this car since we've had it. But before we can fit the door card, we need to align the window to the seals up here, and before we can do that we need to finish gluing on these seals. We put a new soft top on here recently and we've left it up for just over a week to stretch out because it was a really tight fit. There are two things worth mentioning before we start. One is that you need to make sure your door is actually aligned, and indeed that your front wing is aligned before you start trying to align the window, because obviously if the door is not exactly aligned, it'll affect the way the window aligns, and if the front wing is not actually aligned, it'll affect the way the door aligns, and it'll affect things like these panel gaps here. The other thing worth mentioning is that in order to align the window, you should ideally do that with the hard top on, but as we don't have a hard top for this car, and as I don't generally drive these cars with a hard top, I'm going to do it with the soft top. So let's get started. We're going to open the roof up, glue these two seals on here, finish gluing the front of the roof and tucking all this under, and then we can set about aligning the window. Finished gluing on these seals here, and the front seal we've still to come back and fold over some of these bits of material, but that should allow us to align the window. Now you can see on this car here that the window just is hitting there. There's a gap there and a gap here. We need to tilt this window that. We'll start off putting a piece of tape along the bottom here so that when we tilt the window up we can see what gap we've got. You can spend hours, if not days, trying to align your window to the seals, and you may never get it perfect, either because your seals aren't perfect, or more likely if your door has ever been off and isn't exactly square, that when you close it you're going to have to kind of be adjusting your window at a strange angle to try and compensate for the door not closing absolutely square. Having said that, let's just remind ourselves what bolts do what and how to go about adjusting the window glass. First of all, these two bolts here adjust the position of the triangle, and when the window is fully up, this little bit of rubber, which is a little bit damaged on my car, should be pushing out slightly so that it makes a good seal in here and stops water running down and dripping onto your lap. So the position of the rail here is determined by these two screws and also this bolt here. The rear nut, if you change that, will determine the pitch of the window, e.g. when that edge there hits the seal. If you loosen the outer nut without loosening the inner nut, then you can actually move this whole rail back and forwards to get your window glass sitting square. As I mentioned, to adjust the tilt of the window, i.e. the point at which the window hits the seal, at the front you adjust that rear nut, and at the back here you adjust this Allen bolt here. Now, before adjusting that Allen bolt, you probably need to slightly loosen this one here. So this rear rail is held in place by these two Allen bolts. That one is pretty fixed, and this one allows you to adjust the tilt of the window. Now, you may or may not know this, but the Mercedes doors have position 1 and position 2, and position 1 is when the door is latched but not locked, so you'll have this coming out by about 1 centimeter, and in position 1 this glass should just be touching, very lightly touching the seal, and in position 2, where the door is fully closed, the glass should be snugly fitted against the seals. The degree to which the window can go up and down is determined by two things. How far down the window goes is regulated by this here, and how far up the window goes is regulated by this here. So for example, if you find that the edge of the window is just catching the seal, you probably need to move this down slightly so the window can't go up as high as that. There are two other bolts which regulate how high up the window will go, and that is this bolt here and this bolt here, and these are two sliding L-shaped brackets. But it's a fitting like this, okay, and you can move it up and down. What happens as you wind the window up is that hits that stop. Now the same thing happens on this side here. See, here you have the lower stop, and up here you have the upper stop, like that. So if you find that when you wind your window up, whether this is electric windows or manual windows, and they are too high, that is how you adjust that. Probably the hardest thing to get right, and also the most common problem, is when you close the door, the window either catches that top seal there or it catches here, meaning that the window is just tilted slightly in that dimension. And to get that fitting perfectly is incredibly difficult, and in some cases nigh impossible, especially, as I mentioned, if your door isn't square to start off. You'll often find when looking at these SLs, there's a piece of fabric on the outside of this seal if it's genuine. You'll often find that that's worn out just there and there, because in actual fact it's not uncommon over a period of time for the doors to drop slightly and for the windows just to slightly catch there as you close them. If you find that the windows are so out of alignment that you can't actually open the door, or you can't wind the window all the way up, then definitely take the door card off and adjust it. But if you find that the windows are just slightly catching, I wouldn't worry too much about that. If you do want to adjust the tilt of the window in that dimension, you're going to need to undo this bolt here and this bolt here. Now this is a manual window car, but it'll be pretty similar on a car with electric windows as well. You might also find that in order to do the job properly, you need to undo that bolt and that bolt there. If we take this bottom stop off here, you can see that it's adjustable horizontally, not vertically, but horizontally. And as you adjust it horizontally and you move this bar here, it will adjust the tilt of the window either that way or that way. And one of these quickest ways to actually align the window is to loosen those 4 bolts there and also the 2 stops here, and put the window up in the position that you want it so it fits perfectly. Now you might need 2 people to do that, and then when the window actually fits perfectly, go back and tighten all of those bolts. That's not how the manual says to do it. The manual says to do it piecemeal, but sometimes that just takes such a long time as it is almost impossible to achieve. If you can't get the window glass in the right position by undoing these lower bolts, sometimes you can actually adjust the position of the whole mechanism with these bolts here. There's 1 here, 2 here, and another 2 there. I've never actually had any success in doing that at all. I've always managed to adjust the tilt of the window just using those 2 lower slider bolts. This window is adjusted about as good as it's ever going to get. The first thing to do is check that your door has the sound deadening in place, and that's this panel, this self-adhesive panel here. You can buy these panels from Mercedes. They're about £16 each. That's the part number there, 168-682-0308. Now in most cases your sound deadening material will still be there, but if you've had the door off and had it substantially repaired, you might find that that's missing. Next up is to glue on the waterproof membrane. Now these waterproof membranes, you can get them from the SL shop, and I think you can still get them from Mercedes. From memory, they're about £5 each. It'll obviously be much cheaper if you just bought yourself a roll of cellophane, but then you would have to cut it to size. And before you glue on the waterproof membrane, just do a test fit and mark exactly where it goes, because there are certain things that need to line up. For example, this here, obviously the door handle, and this cutout. And once you've glued it on, you're then going to need to actually cut out some holes. This is where the hook from the door goes in there. There's also a little metal clip, I think, that goes through that hole there, and obviously there's all the plastic trim clips that go through the bottom, so you're going to need to puncture this after you've glued it on. In case it's not obvious, the waterproof membrane gets glued on around the edges and also along here in the middle. We've used contact adhesive to glue this moisture barrier on, which is not ideal because of course you only get 1 chance with contact adhesive. Probably better just to put a bead of silicone or something like that that gives you a little bit of wiggle room. Don't forget to make holes here for that screw, and also cut this section here out because this is where the door card also hooks in. These clips just screw in anti-clockwise. It's worth mentioning that these clips here are not genuine Mercedes clips, but they are substantially cheaper than the Mercedes clips, which you could still get, but which cost about £1.60 each. So you'd pay about £25 just for the Mercedes clips. The next thing we need to do is put this door pocket on and then drill a hole by coming through on the other side and drill a hole through there, and then that will screw through this handle here. Next we need to put in our newly refurbished clip. That clips in there, and then we're going to just use one stainless steel screw to screw the handle in to there on the other side. A hole through there. Now we should be able to screw on this handle. The side of this pocket is screwed into there with this tapping screw here, which we bought from Mercedes just to see what size and style it was, and you will not believe how much this one screw costs. There's nothing special about it. It's a raised head self-tapping screw, but I had to actually phone Mercedes because I thought they'd made a mistake on the invoice when I picked it up. Drop me a comment with your guess. This very expensive tapping screw goes through a window or a little chrome collar like that. Part number 00098506665. There should be a metal clip behind there into which this screws, so please don't over tighten that and crack the plastic. We're just about ready to put this door card on. Just before we do so, we're going to put a dab of grease on all of these fittings here and these fittings along the top, just to make our life a little bit easier. Now it's time to attach the door. If you are ever doing this job yourself, first you have to hook this plastic hook in here, and then you need to hook this middle hook in here. Once you're confident that that is hooked in there, this is hooked in here, then you can start hooking these teeth into those little slots there. Just need to lift slightly and push down. Once you've got all of these clips along the top in, you can then go ahead and screw this handle here. Now we have ordered another one of these from Acura stainless steel one, but just for the time being I'm just going to put that in there. It goes in at an angle. The next piece that goes in is this, and I cannot tell you how nice it is to be putting in these chrome trims and seeing this car coming back to life after all these years. This cover just slides up and clips over that. Next we're going to put this front bit of chrome on. Now about 3 years ago we got all the rust off the inside of this and just painted it with rust encapsulator. So if yours is a little bit rusty on this side, just paint it with some kind of rust proofer before you put it back on. The size of screws you use to attach this chrome will depend on the quality of the holes. Sometimes when you're taking the screws out, they'll snap or the holes will no longer be good. So we are using here 2.9 times 13mm raised stainless steel Phillips screws, which seem to work quite well. Once you're confident that everything lines up, you can go ahead, and pop in these little clips all the way along the bottom. Now we can put on this C here. Just remember that the flat side of the C goes down, and we're going to be using some stainless steel M4 8mm Phillips raised head for this. The last piece of trim is this here. Once again, we've treated the back of it with rust encapsulator. The slight problem we have is that our 3 holes are all different sizes. Now this piece of trim also slides on under this fitting here, and I don't know why that fitting is at such an angle. Maybe it is broken. And finally, to finish this door off, we just need to put the door handle on. First we put a piece of plastic chrome on, then you have a white plastic fitting, and then the door handle slides over that. The only thing that holds the door handle on is this piece of trim here. Now, many people end up breaking this because they don't know how it actually goes on, but there are 2 clips at the bottom, and this little fitting here slots into the little grooves. So to get that on, you initially pull it down and then you just slide it up, and that locks everything in place. Don't forget to put that plastic trim piece back over that hole. It's been a huge effort and job to restore this door card and the door and all the associated bits and pieces like the door pocket, etc. But I'm happy how everything has turned out. Obviously we've got the other door card to fit, but that door needs aligning first. That door now closes with a beautiful clunk, and this car is starting to look like the beautiful SL that it is. In the next video, we're probably going to be putting on the door trims and the lower chrome sills. We actually bought some of those door trims from Euro ages ago, but they're missing this one here. We do have that on the parts car, but it's going to need some fixing and refurbishment. And then in future videos, we've also got to put on this lower windscreen trim, and I'm umming and ahhing whether to take the windscreen out and fit new clips, because the clips on this car are either missing or corroded. And also to come in future videos is sorting out the speaker covers here. I've got speaker covers, but they're the wrong color, so I'm going to have to paint them. And fixing buttoning up all the electronics, maybe finding a period stereo for this car. And then there's lots of things missing, like bits of trim here and interior lights and the under dash panel. So there's still plenty of work to do on this car. But I hope you'll agree, we have come a long way from the shell of a car that we picked up in London all those years ago.